Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of How Did I Shoot This One? Oh, how can I start this one? I wanted to start this one with singing into a microphone. But I can play guitar, I can produce songs. Did you know that all the music you hear during our videos is done by me? And you can find me on all your favorite streaming services, by the way, if you like the noise. But this is one of those shots that can transform you back on stage. The old times. You see the lady with the microphone just looking up in the air, one spot aimed at your performer, the band slow. Anyway, you get the idea, right? We're creating a mood. Now, creating a mood is very important when you do a photo shoot. You can, of course, just place a pretty model in front of a backdrop and start shooting. But if there's no story going on and there's nothing really interesting, you just got a pretty girl in front of a backdrop. For me, creating a scene, a filmic image, maybe recreating a live situation for a band, that's where it's all about. Just shooting a model, that's easy. Creating a story, that's something else. And let's be honest, since the Stone Ages, since the cavemen, we are telling stories. The cave paintings, they were all stories. They were all bragging about killing a dinosaur. What has this to do with today's story? Well, very simple. If you want to pull something like this off, you have to be able to transform yourself into the situation that you're trying to recreate. As a musician, I of course can visualize how a stage looks. If you can't, go on one of the music stations or just find some images online. Find something that you like, build a mood board and start building from there. Now the idea that I had was this beautiful singer standing in the spotlight, aimed straight at her, but not straight at her like a normal snoot would, no, like a really harsh beam of light with very distinct shadow, light. But how do you create something like that? We need a light source that can focus the light. Now, when you look at your cupboard with all your modifiers, you probably don't have a light source that can focus the light. You can come pretty close with a Fresnel, because the Fresnel can focus the light, but it still can't do what I want to do today. I want to literally just have that line of light. So there are two things I need. A light source that focuses the light, and I need something that shows the light. The first one is the more difficult one, so we're going to put that on the back burner. The second one is the easy one. We want to make sure that we see something. Now, think about everything that you see in movies. As soon as somebody turns on a flashlight and it looks right, you see that flashlight. But think about live performances. What is the thing that's almost always there at a live performance? And you can't do it yourself because it's very unhealthy. Smoke. So why smoke? Why is smoke so important? Why does it always come back in photography and video? It's simple. We don't work with light, we work with reflections. Now, of course, to get reflections, we need light. But everything that we see, everything that you wear, every color that we see is just reflections of certain frequencies. So certain frequencies get absorbed, certain frequencies get reflected, and that's how our eyes create color, brightness, and darkness. So when we work with lighting in our studio and we want to make sure that we see that light, we need something that reflects the light. Now, normally, of course, this is our model because the model reflects the light. But in this case, I want to see the light going through the air. So what do I need? I need something in the air that reflects back my lighting. And that's smoke. Think about driving in your car. If there's a big fog bank and you turn on your headlight, what happened? You don't see anything anymore because there's a big wall of white light. But if you use your lights under the smoke or under the fog, you can look and see other cars coming. And the other cars are very clearly visible. How is that possible? Because of the fog. It just reflects back all that lighting. In other words, when we work with smoke, we don't want to light it from the front, we want to light it from the back. And in this case, you already guessed it, we're going to light it from the top. So now that we know that we need smoke to show the light, how much smoke? If you want to show that light source, we can't use too much smoke. For the very simple reason, if you use too much smoke, it will just start to spread out that light and you don't see those lines anymore. So we need just enough of smoke. Now, when I use smoke, I always use smoke in two different ways. I use it as a haze, so that's smoke that's still there, but it's hardly visible, and I use it as thick clouds of smoke. And those thick clouds of smoke, those create those patterns and create this dense look in your images. And that can be awesome. So we need haze. So how do we create haze? Very simple. We turn on the smoke machines, we pump smoke, and we just leave it there for a few minutes. And then the whole area is filled with smoke. You don't see it really, but as soon as you start shooting, you can see those beams of light. It's the same thing they use in Hollywood. Now the focus light source. Yeah, that's the problem. Or is it? No, it's not. For focus light sources, you can use something called a Gobo projector. In our case, we're using the Westcott Lindsay Adler projector. The cool thing about the Gobo projector is that it uses a lens in front of your strobe. In my case, I'm using a Canon 50mm lens. Do use a very light sensitive lens. So in my case, I'm using a 1.4 because the slower the lens, the less light will hit your subject. And to be totally honest, a projector already eats the light. So you need a very, very light sensitive lens. So 1.4, 1.2 is awesome. 2.8, that's the bare minimum, but it's actually already too dark. So the 50mm, great choice. So how does it work? Well, in this case, I'm using the light source from the top, aiming down at our model, and I'm using my lens on the most sharp setting. In the Lindsay Adler projector, I'm just using a gobo with an open hole. So in other words, I'm not using the total area, but I'm just using a small area where the light hits through. And because we're focusing it, it will literally create a beam of light like this. But now comes the problem. If I use it from the top down, it will actually create raccoon eyes. And the only way my model can pose is literally looking up and look straight into her nose, which doesn't really look nice. It's great for one shot, for example, like a singer that really goes for it, like wow. But it doesn't look right if you take several images. So in this case, we're faking it just a little bit. We're not aiming it straight down. We're just moving the light slightly forward, aiming it towards our model. And because it's just a beam of light, you don't really see the perspective. So that's great. And now I have a little bit more leeway with posing my models. He still can't look down, but at least he can now look a little bit up towards the camera. Now, we started out with just only the Lindsay Adler project, and that looked great. But then at one point you want more, right? So more smoke in the back. And it didn't look nice. So in the end, we decided to put one extra strobe right behind our model with a yellow gel. The yellow gel just opens up the smoke and gives it this beautiful golden look. And for me, that was the perfect combination. Now, there is one thing in this setup that's a little bit cool. You use, of course, white light from the top and yellow light from the back. If you just shoot it normally, it looks okay. But as soon as you start changing your color temperature towards blue or yellow, you can literally create a nice balance between those images. And that's also something I did in the final results. So let's take a look at the lighting setup, of course, the behind the scenes video, and the final result. As you can see, the lighting setup with the Lindsay Adler projector is awesome. Thank you so very much for watching, guys, and see you again next time. But don't forget, subscribe, like, and tell other people about our channel so we can grow. Bye, guys.